very much, Eric. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Asian Development Bank, it is indeed my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar series on assessing the climate and sustainable development impacts of projects and policies. I'd like to begin by thanking our organizing partners, the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGS, and the UNEP DTU partnership for designing and co-organizing this webinar series. Agenda 2030 and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals provides a roadmap for ending poverty, protecting the planet, and ensuring prosperity for all. We have a lot to do. In parallel, the Paris Agreement reflects an ambitious commitment for addressing climate change while emphasizing the intrinsic relationship that climate action has with equitable access to sustainable development. I would like to be clear that when faced with these development challenges, there is no trade-off. This is not a binary decision. Given the urgency to address these twin challenges, governments around the world are increasingly focusing on implementing policies and stimulating action that simultaneously achieve sustainable development and climate change objectives in a holistic and integrated manner. At ADB, we are indeed committed to ensuring that our investments meet the highest sustainable development standards and deliver real sustainable development benefits. We are committed to quality infrastructure investments, and based on a collection of filters that we run our projects through. At the same time, tackling climate change, building climate and disaster resilience, and enhancing environmental sustainability is one of the 7 operational priority areas that helps unpack our long-term strategy, or Strategy 2030. We also have established ambitious climate finance targets. 75% of ADB's operations shall support climate action by 2030. And ADB recently announced its increase in ambition, and we will mobilize $100 billion of climate financing from our own resources cumulatively by 2030. To complement our commitment to helping achieve the SDGs and the Paris Agreement targets simultaneously, we are steadfast in promoting the delivery of sustainable development impacts from our climate-related projects and policies. In 2017, ADB assessed the social, environmental, and economic impacts of climate mitigation projects supported by ADB's Future Carbon Fund, or FCF, many of which were funded by ADB operations. The sustainable development impacts delivered by individual projects were then mapped against the 17 SDGs. The ADB experience of assessing FCF project portfolio reflects that mitigation projects not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also provide a wide spectrum of local, regional, and transboundary impacts, improving the quality of lives of the people in local communities and beyond. These sustainable development impacts include energy access and energy security, employment generation, diffusion of low carbon technologies, technological innovation, health benefits associated with reduction in air pollution, reduced dependence on imported fuels, reduced traffic congestion, and increase in net trade of technologies and services, among others. It is in this context that ADB realizes the importance of assessing and reporting sustainable development impacts delivered by climate-related projects for the benefit of local communities and their linkages to the SDGs. We must recall that if we can't measure and compare the outputs and outcomes of projects, we cannot assess their performance. There is therefore a necessity to have robust methodologies and tools to ensure reliability and comparability across project categories and geographic locations. To this end, I am delighted to see ADB's partnership with IGS and UNEP DTU to organize a webinar series which will present both existing as well as new tools and methods that can be used for systematic assessment of climate and sustainable development impacts. Throughout the series, we will hear from policymakers and practitioners who will share their experiences in using these tools and methodologies in light of their unique national circumstances and priorities. This webinar series is very timely with the adoption of the Paris Agreement rulebook, and in particular the Article 6 guidance, which pertains to international carbon markets. At COP26 in Glasgow, host countries will need to consider the sustainable development impacts of climate actions. Capacity building and knowledge sharing on how host countries can promote their sustainable development priorities in this context are therefore extremely important and are needed. I wanted to thank Virender and his team for preparing this webinar series, as well as our co-partners. We sincerely hope that it will serve a useful purpose and enable policymakers, practitioners, and other stakeholders to ensure that investments in climate action deliver substantial, sustainable development impacts that are relevant and important in the local context. I wish you an engaging discussion and a successful webinar series. Thank you very much.